Looking back to Saturday, first of all, what are your biggest takeaways from that game, good, bad, or otherwise?
Yeah, well, we've had a good season to this point in time, and guys have been playing at a high level. There's obviously things that we'd like to take back from the game and do better. At the end of the day, that's my job ultimately, and our staff's to do a better job for our players, and it's ultimately up for us as players to be able to rise up and make moments and big moments. Positive takeaways to take away again is being able to come back, make some adjustments in the first half, get us back on track, and then being able to put ourselves in a position. We had a big stop at the end of the fourth quarter to be able to get off the field and give us another chance. Negative takeaways, again, we've got to be more disciplined with certain things. We've certainly got to cut down the penalties. We always want to talk about being able to get off the field on third down. That's a huge part of what we've been able to do. We weren't as successful as that with the other night. The ability to get off the field on fourth down stops, create takeaways. And so, again, we weren't able to do some of those things in the second half, so we've got to be able to do a better job, start with myself again, of being able to look at the film and say, here's what we can do better, and make sure we make those moments in the next one.
I know you weren't here last year for the 2 meetings with UTSA, but obviously a really good team, really good offense. And I think Ben yesterday described them the best I've heard, just smooth all around. What's the scouting report on those guys from your perspective?
Sure, really talented across the board. Skilled quarterback's going to be as good as anybody we face all year. Has really developed, and you can tell, worked at his craft at playing quarterback and developing in that position, not just being an elite runner or dual threat. He's not. He is an elite quarterback that has the ability to run with the ball as well. Takes command of the offense, does a fantastic job with that. He's got 3 receivers that he can throw the ball up to. He can throw it, on curl routes, on comebacks. He can throw deep balls to him, and he's been able to do that. And that group's been together for 3 years now. They've meshed together well, understand what they're doing. Big body tight end, soft hands, makes big plays for them. And again, an offensive line that for years and years has been able to be pretty dominant in the run game and effective in the passing game. So got a big task ahead of us. Got a running back that, again, is able to get the ball down the field, get tough yards, and make big plays happen in games.
I don't know if this question is going to make much sense, but going back to Frank Harris, he's not a guy, despite all that he's done, that gets a lot of hype in terms of, playing at the next level. But, he still gets it done, running, throwing. Kind of reminds me of Tim Tebow back in the day in Florida a little bit, where he just has that hit factor where he just wins. When you go up against a guy with, that hit factor, just the winner's mentality, how much more difficult, does that just make things?
Yeah, well, from a game planning standpoint, it's really challenging. You're trying to be able to put yourself in a position to be successful on edges. You're trying to be successful on the perimeter. You're trying to stop the run game in the A gaps and B gaps. You're trying to be able to spread yourself enough that you have some overlap in your defense, and you got a quarterback that can take off. And he doesn't go for 7; he goes for 70. So it's really challenging, really difficult. And again, I think his maturation and his growth, as a quarterback this season is well on display.
I've heard Tyson talk about, limiting teams to field goals. This is an offense that, is probably going to move the ball a little bit, but how do you try to limit them to field goals instead of touchdowns? Yeah,
well, I think it's the same thing that we've kind of been preaching all year. Our goal each week is to get 9 knockouts. So for us, what that means is you have a fourth down stop, any combination of a fourth down stop, a 3 and out, make them kick a field goal, all right, and then get a takeaway. And so that's kind of our ratio for how to win football games, is to get to that number. And really we're trying to get to 75% of our possessions with that. So that's got to be it. At the end of the day, we've got to be able to find ways to be able to take the ball away. We've got to be able to find ways to make them kick field goals, and we're going to have to be able to get off the field. They do a nice job and are very well versed in trying to go from 3rd and 7 to 4th and 2 and 4th and 3, situations like that. So we've got to be ready when our number's called.
I believe their O-line has been dealing with a little bit of injuries so far this year. I think I saw a stat earlier today that, Harris has faced pressure on dropbacks, the 9th most times in the FBS, and about half of those came from the right tackle spot. What do you see in that regard in trying to get pressure on him? And I know we've talked about it a little bit, but, how do you try to get him down?
Yeah, well, I think one of the big things as you sit there and you look at it is, again, he has gotten a lot of pressure this year, but he hasn't got a lot of people to get him down, like you said, So some of that is, how to tackle effectively, how to tackle smartly, those kind of things. And some of it is what you're coming with. Obviously, we're always trying to look for certain protections and set those things up and be able to set our guys up to be in a good position to create pressure and put pressure on quarterbacks, but I think he's seen a decent amount, but I think he's been able to step up to the challenges and hurt people with it as well.
You know, one of the guys that's been able to get a lot of pressure, it seems, and might not show up in the stat sheet as much as Broderick Martin. I think it was after Hawaii, Caleb said that you guys have star players and star makers, and he's a star maker.
That's right.
You know, what has made Broderick, so good? It seems like he's kind of came on strong at the end of last year. And, how big is he for this offense?
Sure. Well, to me, Broderick, one, has a special place in my heart. He's one of my favorite players. Always got a big smile on his face. Comes into my office every day. If he is in the building, he comes in my office. And, he and I are close. But I'll tell you what, he's been blessed with the body that he has. He has made the most out of it. He plays big, but he plays really well with his hands. I think that's where his growth has come, and that's let him play faster. He is so much more of a dominant pass rusher than he ever was in the spring, and able to use his size and understand his body, and his feet are able to come along with it. So he has been a guy for us that has been a stalwart inside. We build a lot of our defense around him and what he's able to do, and I'm glad he's here.